the same quality as the traditional longer GodHand brushes, but they've got shorter grips. Hello, this is BJ from Hearns Hobbies, and I'm going to be looking at the brand new GodHand brushes. So we've looked at brushes before, but these brand new ones are actually the short grip ones. Okay, so I've got the short grip ones here. Just in the front here, this is how they're packaged. And then I've got one of each loose over here. So short grip, what does it mean? Obviously, they're very short. So just pick up this one. So you see how small it is in comparison to their full-size one. Okay, there's a couple of differences. So apart from the shorter length, there's also the cap. So the more traditional set of GodHand has the aluminium cap, which is handy for protecting the ends. The shorter ones have one of these tubes, which works just as well, but they don't have the aluminium, which also keeps the price down as well. Now from here you can see the biggest difference. Let me just take the cap off that. This is the biggest difference there. Okay, so you've got quite a length that's probably about 3 centimeters shorter. Same broad handle though, and I quite like the fatter handles, because if you compare it to these more traditional longer ones, you see how when you use these, they're quite tight, which you can get used to. I mean, I'm pretty used to these as well, but once you use a broader handle, they definitely are much more comfortable when you're using them for long periods of time. Okay, so when you're using it, they have a much broader feel, it's much more natural. And because we're working on such fine objects, it's very rare that we need anything much longer, because the longer ones, they're great for fine art when you're trying to paint like this on a canvas, or perhaps on watercolor like this, but usually we'll be holding it towards the end like this. Okay, so they're great for most situations, but there is a time when you need a short type brush. Okay, and that time comes when you're working very closely on models. Okay, so let me just pop this back. I'll go into a bit more of the background first. So I opened up this one. The blue ones are the more traditional range. So they've got quite a stiff bristle on them. Then they have the white ones, which have the softer bristle. So softer bristle being better for fast drying paints such as acrylics and lacquers. And then as we get into the fine ones, these three have the exact same type of bristle as the longer blue ones. So exactly the same description. They have the same ends on them. So they've got a stiff point. When it comes to these two, these are an extra fine point, and what they've done is these bristles are extra stiff, because with close-up work, you're going to be wanting to apply the paint exactly where you want it and be able to maneuver it where you want it. So the extra thin ones have an extra stiff feel, particularly good when you're doing, say, eyeliner around small figures' faces, the pupil in tiny eyes, and any other finer details, maybe line work, even fine line work on, say, striped shirts or such. Okay, so let me give you a demonstration of why short brushes are good. Now what I'm going to need is my magvisors, which I'll just go and grab over here. Okay, so here's my magvisors, one of my favorite tools. Quite often I'll be using these. Alright, so if we wear them, you'll be putting it on like this. And because of the focal length of using them, you're usually quite close up to your face. Okay, so if I was holding onto something and I had a traditional brush like this, I'll be like this. Okay, so this is in focus now, and as I'm using it, I'll be like this, and you'll see that the brush sort of gets in the way. So if you go like this, you may look around here at your reference and you've already smacked it, and then you've got this wiggly line all over your model. So that's one of the reasons why the short brushes are really handy. So if I were to use this, I'll be holding it like this. It'll be towards the palm of my hand. So still supporting all the three Oh, I guess it's 2 fingers and a thumb. Be wrong of me to say 3 fingers, but you'd be like this. Then as I'm using it, I'll turn like this. You can see that as I'm using it, there's no chance it's going to be hitting any part of my visor. Even if I'm turning around like this, it's short enough. And you'll see that how I'm holding it. So that's basically right angles with my wrist. You can see how when I'm touching the surface, that has a lot more control there already. And that's how I would generally be using a brush when I'm up close. So with the extra length from these others, so for example, even if I used one of the GodHand ones, which are shorter anyway, if I were to use this like this, it's already touching. So like that, and that can be quite annoying. So that's where these short brushes work really well. So I think it's going to be easier if I actually show you each one in action, because they do have specific points. So this particular one is the fine point in the standard, fairly stiff. So same as the blue one, but with the short handle. So I'll just prepare up some paint. So what I'm going to do is we'll just get some Tamiya acrylic. And I'll use black because that'll be easier for you to see, I think. And I'll thin it down. Oh, that's the wrong spot. Stick it over here. Right, it's probably about enough. So I'll put it in there. So what I've got over here is just water just for cleaning up. Now the great thing about these brushes is they're designed to work with acrylics, of course, which is very easy to use because you clean up in water. But they're also quite happy being used with more aggressive paints like enamels and also lacquers. So to demonstrate that, I'll just use some lacquer thinner here. And I'll just use a little bit because it's already pretty thin. So we're not airbrushing or such, but it just needs to be extended just a little bit. Okay, that's just a couple of drops. All right, that's pretty workable. Okay, just clean that up. Put that over here. All right, let's try the first one. Okay, so this is quite a fine point. Let me hold it up here so it's a bit easier for you to see. So as you can see, I mean, a lot of different manufacturers would classify their points in different numbers, and everyone say 000 is different. Some are very fine, some are really coarse. This would be considered a really, really fine one, and some places would call like a 20 0. So let's just dip this in here. Okay, get rid of the excess on this. Okay, so if I were painting this, let's just paint a line. Okay, so there's a line there. Let's try. Like so. So pretty fine, as you can see. Okay, so let's just quickly clean that off. Wipe that on this. Now I'm also using the new GodHand tissue paper here, which leaves no lint, but we'll get into that in another video, I think, because it's just got so many great features that I won't be able to explain right now. Okay, so what I think I'll do is I'll do a comparison of all the different brushes. I'll just keep adding more lines as I go. Okay, so that's a fine one there. That's a yes. All right, let's move on to the next one. The next one is the L. Okay, so the L is also a fine. Let's just put this down. Let's pull this off. Okay, so that's what the L looks like. So the L is the same sort of thickness as the previous brush, but it's much longer. So basically this is used for lining. And the idea is when you're doing very long lines, you don't want to run out of paint. So a longer bristle will allow more paint to be charged into the bristle. And also, because it's long, it allows you to make a straighter line, because as you're dragging it quite straight, like this. Okay, so let's load it up, see what it's like. Okay, so straight line, yep. Like so. Like so. So very similar finish to the original one. And the difference is you got much longer bristle there, and you can see it's still loaded up with paint. So if I continue to go, so you can imagine you're doing striped pants or striped shirt on a figure. Okay, so let's just run out of paint then. I mean, that's going a lot further than a shorter bristled brush. Okay, so that's the liner. All right, we'll clean that. Move on to the next one. So the next one is a flat brush. So this is a flat oblique brush. So you see that. So a regular flat brush would be cut straight, but this one's been cut at an angle. So advantage being is, as you're using it, it feels a little bit more natural here. Or you can also use it other way and you have like this texture, so you get a triangular feathering effect. Or you can, with flat brushes, you can even use it quite straight like this and it'll be quite fine. So quite useful, this particular shape. So let's see what this looks like. Okay, so you can see that it's all loaded up, it's all black now. Right, so if we drag this across, okay, so it's quite broad. If I spun it around, like so, and then on the very tip here, actually that's pretty similar, isn't it? I don't think I dragged it too well here. All right, like this. Okay, so we've got 3 different widths there, and depending on the angle that you move the brush, you'll be able to change all of those as well. Now flat brushes I find are really good for dry brushing, so particular raised areas like this. So you can just drag it across the top. A bit hard for them to see what I'm doing at the moment because I'm trying to hold it so it's easier for you to see, but I think you get the idea of the advantages there. Okay, so that's the oblique. Okay, that's all cleaned up. All right, so now we're going to move into the final 2. So differences being these have the extra fine and hard bristles on them. Okay, so let's just have a look at this one. So this is a regular fine one. It's quite broad. This is something that I would consider a standard for fine brush. Everyone needs a brush about this sort of width for doing most of your fine work, and then you get something finer if you need to. Okay, so let's have a look here. So actually, let's see the color of the bristles is a little bit different as well. All right, let's load it up and see what it looks like. Actually, there's a bit too much on there. Okay, so we've got so you can actually feel it's got a lot of control just in the tip. I'm only just touching. Yep. So that's with a really stiff bristle. Quite nice. Okay, so that's their regular type. And then they have one more, which is the extra fine. So let's move on to that one. Quick clean up. Okay, there's their extra fine one. And that's super, super fine. Not much there at all. So, I mean, particularly if you're doing eyeballs on like 35th scale figures or even 48th scale, I mean, that is absolutely tiny. Okay, so let's have a look. Load it up. Just get rid of the excess. All right, so let's have a look. So hold that on, a bit hard for me to see now. Okay, so you can see how that's finer than the previous one. And then if you're doing dots for eyeballs, well, that's pretty impressive. And so they're reasonably long bristles too, so you can see how loaded that was just by doing just this small area there. And again, just to reiterate, so if I was painting up close, I would normally be like this. So you can see that there's no chances of the short end touching my magvisor. So that's that top one here. So they're the results from the 5 different short grip GodHand brushes. Now let me just quickly clean that off. Put that aside there. Okay, so in summary, these brushes are the same quality as the traditional longer GodHand brushes, but they've got shorter grips. So idea of the shorter grip is there's less chances of it actually getting in the way of your face or your magvisor when you're doing very close-up work. The other advantage is there's 2 especially fine points which have extra heavy bristles to give you more control. And then they still have the same benefits of the original GodHand in that if the bristles become frayed or such, you can put them into very hot water, so they need to be above 90 degrees. And the bristles will reshape into the original point. So that's another benefit. So that's the demonstration on the brand new GodHand short grip brushes. You can see the results here. Working very, very nicely indeed. So short grip, very close hand work. You can get your face right into your work as well without any worry about knocking anything. I mean, I've done it many times with long brushes. I'd knock my magvisor and then end up with a squiggle line just where I don't want it. And then, of course, the advantage of being able to reshape the bristles, I mean, that's a game changer, I think. And that was first announced with these particular brushes. So they're not the most expensive. They're more expensive than your regular brushes, but when you consider that how fine these bristles are, the longevity of the bristles, and also how you can reshape the bristles, definitely make these a worthwhile investment. The other thing that is quite nice is they're very light. It's a very light wooden handle, and it's a very broad handle. So the broad handle has been carried over to the short grips. I quite like the yellow as well. They're very easy to find. So very nice, give them a try.